Hello, Noah.
Oh, hey, Tyler. What's going on?
Oh, nothing much. I'm just really glad to see your face. We're doing a video version of it this time, which last time you were here,
That's right.
episode 70 something, it wasn't on video.
Wow.
So technology's moved forward.
Wow, I remember that. 2020. Early January 2020. It was
ancient history. Yeah. Long time ago now. And it was just after that I started doing video podcasts because everybody started doing video podcasts because we all had a little more time. And for anybody listening who doesn't remember who Noah is, Noah Kalina is a fantastic photographer and all around, Renaissance man. You do a lot of stuff that I look up to artistically and creatively. And the thing you're known for possibly the most is your everyday portraits, where you've taken a photo of yourself every day for how many years now?
23. We're in the 23rd year of that project.
Yeah. And it was a sensation. It's still going. And then on the photo side, I've always looked up your portraits. You now live on a farm and you take beautiful images of your trees and your animals. And everybody should check out your work. Or if you have a Samsung Frame TV, you might already be checking out Noah's work because you're one of the featured artists on there. Or what is that? What is that thing called? The artists in residence on TV?
I don't know. They just, great question. I don't know if they have a proper name for it, but it's called the Frame TV, and I am an artist that is on it. So, I think it's me, Degas, Van Gogh. Have you heard of Van Gogh?
This is true, right? You're on this short list of like 5.
Yeah. Those are the most popular ones. Mostly historic art figure. It's a decorative thing mostly. I think that's how most people use it. But they did invite a few people, artists, to have a selection of their own work, some photography, some painting, what have you. And it's cool. It's almost like a Spotify model. So if you do load my work up on the TV and you pay the subscription, I see a micro royalty from that. So it's actually very cool. It's the first time I've known of something like that happening in the photo visual art realm.
And I mean, it's one of the things that would actually be moving the way that we hang art into, like, using modern things in a way that makes sense somewhat. Because I think people are buying the Frame TVs for that reason. Like I didn't buy it yet, but I'm planning to get one for the room just outside here. And that's why, because I can put other pictures beside it and it really does fit in. This is not sponsored by Frame. I wish they would send me a TV, but
it should be. It could be,
but it's a very good. There's not many TVs that have like a thing that is kind of exceptional. So I guess it's worth talking about. But this also will tie in.
Cool.
It will tie into the broader topic of this episode, which I just want to talk about. Like where are we with photography right now? Like what's going on? It's. Sometimes I'm having like smaller existential crises about it because we've got AI knocking at the door. The amount of people that are good at photography is increasing exponentially. I think newer generations treat it differently. Like it's kind of a commodity now, whereas I think for us growing up, each photo had a little bit more value. The technology is moving quickly. It's just let's do a little like state of the union of like what it's like working as a photographer or just being somebody that enjoys it. I don't know, that feeling of photographer being a little bit of your or my like identity, where it's like, oh, that's the thing I am. I'm a photographer. But we're shifting to a time, I think, where it's not just like everybody's a photographer because they want to shoot their cousin's wedding. Everybody just is taking a tremendous amount of photos, sharing them, and potentially even having an impact on the world from it, or sharing videos. And there's like also this interesting crossover between the utility of when are videos useful and when are photos useful. Instagram has been pushing that. So I don't know. That's my index for table of contents for this episode.
Okay. Well, it's complicated. Where do we begin? I mean, a lot of these things, it's nothing new, right? It's like when I got into it and I started, and I believe, I'm part of that generation who was like first to internet, sharing photography on the internet, which to the generation before me was the biggest existential threat of their lives. And I mean, it's funny just to go back even a little bit. I mean, I know photographers who are mostly not even photographers anymore, or they're, just not really working, but they made a really amazing living selling stock photography, right? Like when images were more valuable in a way, it was more rare to be able to get to certain places and see certain things. So those photos had.
I've thought about doing a whole episode about stock because that was my background, and I have a lot of friends that were like in the significant early days of stock photography. If you don't know, like Calgary, where I am, happens to be where like 3 of the major stock, or even 4 of the major stock photo companies came out of, just coincidentally. So the one that Getty bought, which is was it Image Source? Or am I getting that one wrong? But then from that came Veer and iStock Photo. And then Getty had their headquarters here after they acquired iStock as well. So there's always been this stock photo thing around me. And I'm thinking a lot about where that's going to go right now. Like we still sell some stock photos, but less and less. And I'm wondering what the future of that is, especially with AI. But
my point was like people bought houses on income generated from, putting in the work to make the stock, and then, having this residual, royalty pay off over time. And then obviously with digital cameras and the proliferation of images and the internet, the value of that basically went to zero. I'm on Adobe stock in their premium collection, and maybe now like twice or 3 times a year, I make $500 or something. It's like, I'm like shocked that people still buy stuff. In fact, funny, someone just wrote me, she wanted to buy something from Adobe stock, but wanted to go through me directly. And then I was like, oh, wow, that's strange. Should I be doing that?
I've had that a few times.
Have you? Yeah. I mean, she wanted it for less than what Adobe. And I was like, well, I thought it was more about getting a deal than actually just like
right.
hooking me up with what, the 50% Adobe would take.
And then the price you pay is now you're not like protected by Adobe's lawyers should this go sideways.
And I'd have to like do the, look it up. I mean, not like that's hard, but I just ghosted her because I just thought it was annoying. But yeah, I guess it's, people are still looking for stuff. I guess, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there's a few more years in the stock photo world. I think I'd give them, 2 more healthy years of business, and then they've got to really figure it out. But
yeah, I guess that's generous. I don't know. Certainly for, editorial, like news stuff, it makes sense. Wire kind of images. But for, I don't know, generic illustrations, it seems like something that people can just very easily make, and now especially with AI, just generate all of the assets you need, including the people, and why not worry about any sort of model release, the stuff that makes it complicated.
This is actually a great place to start. So this theme is something I've been thinking about, of like, why will people continue to hire photographers in the near future? I don't think we can't predict anything like past 5 years out. Who knows? There'll be some other revolution we don't know about yet. But let's say in the the foreseeable future, what are reasonable guesses we can make at what might happen? And I think that interaction of like, why will people continue paying photographers? Like, what will photography careers still be for the next little while? If somebody's getting into it now, how could they possibly hope to continue to have a career? And a lot of what my early career was built on, I think, is going to fade away. And like I was saying, that came from stock photography, and then a lot of just like sort of generic work, right? Where it's like this person could be inserted into any campaign, or just lifestyle work where like the person's happy in a forest, or they're happy eating salad, or they're happy at the dentist or whatever. And this is, then you insert that into some commercial use. That's what AI is going to be best at. Whereas what I don't think it is ever going to replace, I think we'll always have something like photography, is showing that a thing happened. Like, here's a portrait of a real person. This is what the person looks like. Yeah. Here's a place that they are. That, obviously
totally.
we'll still need that.
Like journalism, it's a form of journalism. Although, and I mean editorial content and celebrity stuff and stuff like that. But I mean, I think as we've seen, like that stuff, and those are real people, right? So it's hard to want to sort of just completely fabricate that from AI. Although I guess you could, a celebrity might want to do it. But, and obviously it gets complicated because like a lot of these things are constructed to begin with, like almost the sets are completely made up, and, the photos are completely retouched, and, it's gotten to the point where it's like almost a lot of photography, especially on the super high end, is mostly digital imaging. Photography is just that early base level of work. So, I mean, I think ultimately, it might just come down to like working with people who have a very defined style, true artists, like people who have vision, and that is valuable, and people find that, and those people rise through the ranks of whatever industry, and their work is desirable. But again, that's nothing new. That's kind of how it works. But when it comes to just commercial stuff, like the illustrating certain things, like you said, a happy person in a dentist chair, like there's no I see no reason to ever want to actually hire like a photographer and a crew and put together a production to do that. It just doesn't seem to make much
except
sense.
for the times that you're going to tell the story of like, we renovated our office. Here's how nice it looks in the real world, and here's people in it. So there'll always be that, like, we're telling the story of the thing, and you need to know what it's actually like. And then much of the time it'll just be like, here's the sense of it. But there'll also be this, because like you're saying, we've always had this photoshopping, and before that, just, darkroom wizardry of like just manipulating images in many ways. And in so many ways, it's just gotten much more accessible, and bigger, more ambitious changes to an image will become extremely accessible. So previously, if you wanted to insert your subject into a synthetic environment, right? Like they are on the moon, they're somewhere special. You either need to like photograph a miniature, or you need to generate it in 3D. And that either takes a bigger team or multiple days of shooting, or like it takes a longer list of skills. So we don't quite have this software really coming yet. I mean, obviously it's starting to come into Photoshop through their Firefly thing, but like I can imagine just like portrait software where as long as you've got good source images, the manipulating you're doing is really robust. And so when on your other show, which All Consuming, you've mentioned how many times you don't enjoy talking about AI, and you just sort of like, for us, you feel some deep disgust. I'm not sure how you would describe it, but you don't like to interact with AI too much. Do I have that right?
Yeah. For the most part, I mean, like the pure generating of images from scratch through AI. But, I just think that's lame.
That'd be my question, is like, when do you not enjoy it? Because obviously you're willing to do Photoshop on your images to some extent. You'll touch them up in some ways. But what's the line?
And I have been using the beta and like Photoshop, which is pretty amazing. And I've been actually using it as to remove things, like selecting things. And
that's like one of the best uses for it.
It's so good. Also the sky stuff, but they've had that for a while. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's all bad. I just think like for the most part, it comes down to like those pure like the AI generated images that are based on film looks that are just fully constructed from scratch. It to me that stuff just is corny and it looks cheesy. And it's funny. I came across this concept called the effort heuristic. Are you familiar with that?
No, but just by the name, I'm guessing I can imagine what it might be.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like Wikipedia says, like it's the quality or worth of an object is determined from the perceived amount of effort that went into producing the object, right? So it's like I like almost see that, and I just kind of write it off when I see a lot of that stuff. I'm like, oh, you just like typed in a few words, it's like. What it took 10 minutes, and I get it. Like some people feel like they become really good at becoming prompt artists or whatever. Like they know the language that they need to, or the words that they need to say to get the thing that they want to see. But, to me, I think what inspires me most about photography is, like the pain, and the suffering that goes into a lot of, like image making on the highest level. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that. I think I see it. But I think a lot of people see this too when they see film photography. And I think film photography has held on to its like power for so long because people see that it requires extra steps, right? Like it's harder to do. And it's, you don't, once you even know just a little bit about how film photography works, you realize that when someone pulls it off really well, it's amazing. It's not just an art; it's a craft. It's all of these things that come together and like make something that is powerful. So when I look at AI stuff, I'm just like lame. Like I just immediately I just feel it. And but that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm old. Old fashioned.
I think your reaction and your reason for it makes sense and are common in ways that people may not even realize. Like I look at it, and if it's good, I do think like, oh, that's cool. Like I'm compelled towards what's interesting about it. But I strongly agree that your effort heuristic is how people naturally interact with any creative process, because millions of people are seeing these AI generated images and not really engaging with them. Like you don't see them go viral in the way that a cute photo of a cat will. Like if people sense at all that this didn't really happen, this isn't something real, they don't have the active rejection of it that you're describing. Like you're saying, like, I don't like it. I get it away from me. People don't even get to that point. They're just like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. They just go past it because that whole feeling happens naturally. I think it's like a pretty deep instinct to be like, why would I be interested in this thing that I know a computer created with a few phrases? Other than the novelty of that it was able to be created. And that won't matter when it comes to like commercial work. Like we're saying, if you need to generate a dentist's office, then that doesn't matter, right? It still can accomplish the same goal. But I also think, like you were talking about film photography, I think we've been having a slow building resurgence for the last decade. And I think that will massively increase. If film doesn't become prohibitively expensive, which is happening, if we can still afford to have it, I think it'll really make a comeback as a response to AI, especially younger creatives that maybe haven't worked with film before, haven't experienced that, and are going to grow up with this super abundance of AI images. There will be something very just a reconnection to the world by shooting film, in the same ways that I think that's the reason that there's, certain like modernist aesthetics are sometimes rejected now in favor of like, more like wooden textures and like, I don't know, we wear workwear as office wear, and like there's sort of this shift, or like vinyl, obviously there's this like everything around us becomes so controlled that we have this urge to like, well, no, I need something to feel more real. Like give me, I want to carry around a camera instead of just my phone because like it has a physical effect in the world. And I don't know. I think film will be a part of that. And I think there'll be like a higher value on film images. People will be more attracted to them.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps. I mean, ultimately,
I don't know.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, and if that's what works for you, I think that's cool. I mean, certainly I've been seeing a lot of television these days, or, these series that are being shot on film. And I think that's interesting that they're doing that. I'm not totally sure why, because I feel like it looks practically the same. I mean, you can kind of tell, but I guess it's like ultimately, what's the point? Like, why do it to begin with, and especially with photography.
Well, let's go back 2 seconds to what you're just saying about can you tell or not, which I think is a bigger discussion. I was kind of like riling up color nerd Twitter about this the other day, of just like that I find a lot of the emulations out there still don't really feel like film. Something I was going to clarify this in a tweet, but I'll say it here too, that I think basically film executed really well, like in a controlled environment used by professionals. That's when you can't really tell the difference between film and digital. The grain right. stops being kind of a non-issue. There's no like really visible halation. It's not underexposed. You don't have those weird like shadows that rise up full of grain and really faded. If it's just exposed totally well and it's a really new film stock and everybody's doing it right, it starts to feel like digital-ish. And that's when the emulations can achieve that same look. So, some shots in the 8th Star Wars were there is some digital mixed in with the film, and you 100% can't tell at that level. But in the point and shoot level of like, you just pull out a crappy old camera, the way that bad film looks, that's what I don't think can really be emulated. Like when there's a mistake, or maybe even shooting 16 millimeter or 8 millimeter, like moving film, that we haven't pulled that off yet. And so I think that's why that's a lot of people's attraction to it. And even when like I was posting my photos that were really underexposed, like they're underexposed, like they didn't turn out. A bunch of people were like, these look great. And I'm like, you're just saying that because they look visibly different from a filter on a digital photo. Yeah.
And, you have fun doing it. I don't know. I mean, I think it just depends. And like like I said, what's the point? What's the end use? And it's like, you want to create and share these memories. And it was easy to do. There is something to be said about like having a point and shoot and just taking one frame and then, 2 weeks later seeing what you got. I also noticed, and this is going back like a long time, but like when I was still shooting film, sort of like a mix between both, like blinks look better on film. That half blink that people do when they're caught right. in the shutter. They look totally acceptable when you do it on film, but it looks like an absolute nightmare when it's shot on digital. I don't know why that is, but it's just one of those things that is super random. I was just watching, and I think a lot of people hate this show for some reason. I don't understand why, because I thought it was amazing. But the show The Idol on HBO Max. Have you seen?
I am aware of it, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people have been saying that it's bad. I thought it was amazing. I think it's like one of the best shows that have been on in a long time. And that's shot on film, and it has like a very specific look. And I feel like the theme and the tone and everything about it has that very like late 90s, early 2000 like peak cinema feel, where it was like that's what I think all the best movies were from that era, and it was mostly like right at the turn or the start of the digital revolution. So it was like the film technology was at its height. So just everything looks so good then. It was all films, like movies were shot on film. It was before the transition. And I think this show has that look. And there is something gritty about it too. I mean, and it's part of the storytelling, I think, also. So there's a combination of reasons why you would choose to do such a thing. Budget, also having it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. These are just choices. I think ultimately it doesn't really matter, right? Like it's like whatever you want to do to tell the story. To just that's the cliche. Right?
Have you seen any of the people on Instagram or social media in general that are doing these like really insane mix, like edits of like mixed media, where when they're doing like fashion and like, I don't know, fashion lifestyle stuff, and they're shooting across like all formats at once. So they'll mainly have, you know, a high quality digital video camera, but then they've also got like a crappy old digital point and shoot and a crappy old film point and shoot and a professional film camera. And then in the edit, they're like cutting back and forth between all these media. And all of a sudden in that context, that like, as you jump from, you know, a Sony FX3 to a Sony, I don't know what the Sony's were, Sony Mavica, I don't know, you know, like some old crappy point and shoot from 2005, it then the like broken image looks really compelling. And then it cuts to film, and like people will kind of splice all this stuff together. And I find that really compelling as that like jump back and forth, right? Like when you kind of have this like refreshing, like it feels like when you're seeing the modern camera, like oh, that's reality. Now you jump to an old crappy, the modern camera like feels produced, and you like smear the production away and you see what's underneath with this like grittier, crappier image. And you're like, oh, that's like the real reality. And I don't know, it's like, as you kind of shift mediums, you get different presentations of like, I don't know, what's real and what's the production put on top of it. But I like the look.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll check that out. I haven't seen that, but again, like what are we trying to achieve here? What are we doing? I mean, just personally, like I moved away from shooting film mostly because I found the process to be too slow.
Expensive.
I just
right.
Yeah, but it's not even that. Like certainly with the amount of stuff that I end up buying, you know, like I think I would have saved money if I just shot film. You know, but I think it's like ultimately a lot of the times the end goal is a screen, and that just seemed like it was creating a level that if we were just shooting film and that film went into an enlarger and that made a print and that was it, like that was the end goal, like that would be one thing. But I found, you know, more and more, like especially with like the commercial work that I did, like obviously it was just going to end up on a computer and then be sent somewhere else, and then, you know, mostly just ended up online. So why bother with the film at that extra step and that scanning process where a lot of things can go wrong. Scanning is so difficult. Especially, there are people who do it well, but
I feel like that's where a lot of people struggle now. They'll start with the flatbed scanner and like the colors look bad. And yeah, there's the scanning is the most difficult or most commonly broken part of the chain, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the printer that I use in Brooklyn, he actually now scans, but he shoots them digital. It's just like a photograph of, you know, like that's the scan, and they just invert the photos. And he was talking about doing it. It gets so technical, but like literally because like film is like not flat, like exposed film, like it's literally doing multiple focus stacking. Yeah. On like what is like the, you know, millimeter, I don't even know. It's like micro millimeters, like. And I was like, that seems like ridiculous. It's nerdy, and
that's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and I don't know if, you know, I can't tell. You know, like I seriously can't tell the difference.
Let's talk a bit about that. That, like, you know, what you're saying, what it matters is what it's for. Like, where is it going? What are you going to do with it? What are people going to do with photography in the future here? Like, so I'm thinking about when I talk to younger people getting into it. I think both of us are, you know, we kind of are somewhat settled in our career, and there'll be some shifts coming up, but we don't need to figure it all out from scratch. We'll probably be able to evolve into something that works. But what, I don't know, does it make sense for people to get into photography hoping to make money at it right now? Like what advice would you have?
No, I mean, was there ever a time that was,
yeah,
you know, like when I went to art school for photography, I mean, most people would, you know, like most olds would say, like, how are you going to make a living doing that? Like, getting involved in art is a bad idea from the get-go. Like, and
if you want to make a return on it.
If you want to be rich, I mean, it's possible. People do it. It's, but it's sort of like, ascending to the, the MBA or something, the most elite level. And like, it's, if you're good, it can happen. If you're good, it also might not happen. It's hard, but you don't really do it. No creative person is into it because of the money. I mean, that was ridiculous. It's the wrong motivation to do it. I mean, certainly it doesn't hurt to make money. Everyone likes to, I think, for the most part. People will say that they don't, but I think they're lying. But yeah, I mean, it's hard, but there are ways. And I mean, now there's all of these sort of incredible ways to sort of monetize your content, if we want to call it content, but like your art, you're just like your output, whatever it is that you create. I mean, I feel like, I'm getting, not like I'm old, but I feel like I'm more tired, right? Like, but 15 years ago, if I had all of these tools and platforms like Patreon or, whatever, like subscriptions, the things that allow people to support the work, like I would be really all over that stuff. Like because there was a time where I was absolutely shooting every day, like to post, like, because I loved it. It was like what I did. It was just like, and ultimately like doing that would lead me to, be seen, and sort of discovered by art directors or photo editors or art buyers who would, the goal almost was like to be hired to shoot something, shoot a campaign or shoot like an editorial for a magazine. But now it's almost like you can do that, but then also like sort of create your own magazine of sorts. Like you are your own publishing vehicle. I mean, you obviously do this. Like you have all of these channels that, you develop a fan base, and then that fan base can be monetized. And then that allows you to keep being creative. And I think that's amazing. It's amazing. It's an amazing opportunity, and there's a lot of freedom in that, especially when you are your main client. And I guess your audience is, but they can choose to support or not support. The main problem really just is it's an exhausting amount of work. It's like never not working. And I mean, I feel like that still to this day. I'm never not working, like literally every day, every hour, every set. It's like I don't do vacations. It's like, but this is my life, and that is, I can't see any other way of doing it. It's just like that's the life of the creator, the artist, the photographer.
Well, I don't know about you, but I find when I have like a really free day where I'm like, I really actually don't have anything I need to do today, it's very hard for me to choose to use that to intentionally do nothing. Like I will usually be like, well, I guess I could take care of this one. Like I could clean up this box of accessories that I've been meaning to get to or whatever. I'll end up still working.
Well, that's part of the job. I'm cleaning my studio is like 65% of my art practice.
Your studio looks much more organized than mine. I'm always jealous of that. So you're obviously giving a higher percentage of time to it.
I mean, maybe, but that is part of, it's all part of it. It is the life of it. And yet it's certainly not easy, but time, right? And again, it's part of the effort heuristic, right? You're putting in that time, and how you sustain it and how you make it happen. Well, that's the hard part.
There's this a quote I should try to track down originally because I heard it secondhand from a movie podcast in reference to M. Night Shyamalan. So I don't know if he said it, but they're discussing this convergence in a creative career where your kind of hustle, your energy starts to peak at the same time as your competence does. And that's like when you create your most interesting output, because gradually after that, your competence continues to increase. You might become more skilled, but you don't have the same energy to put forward to it. And that like, I liked that idea of like, yeah, there are these like lines that are, I don't know how to, like that are going to intersect at some point. You don't really know when it'll be, or, you won't probably won't realize it until retrospect. You're looking back at the work that you've done, but I don't know. It's just like it's something to think about, and something, especially for people that haven't reached that point, to be like, I remember having so much energy to work on stuff that really turned out to be garbage because I didn't know what I was doing. And now, I definitely have less of that energy. It's like, I know what I'm doing, and with minimal effort, I can make something look much better than when I was younger. But I don't have that same like infinite drive to stay up, to pull all nighters and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Oh, totally. I think for sure my peak was somewhere between my age of 28 and 32, which is now over 10 years ago. And it's funny because like, I feel like I'm a much better photographer now, but like, it was just like my youthful energy, and also being young in a creative field, like it's more desirable. So, there was certainly a lot of that, but also like be willing to do more for less,
Yeah. No, that's part of it too, is that there's less at risk with everything you take on. You're not afraid to look bad. You're not afraid that this next thing won't meet the expectations people have set for you, or you won't have wasted the time, or you might have even now sometimes it's like, well, I have this interesting creative idea, but I also have a job that will take a lot of time. And I'm like, well, I should probably put more time into the thing that will pay, and less time into the creative thing, because I now have commitments, right? I now have financial commitments I didn't have when I was 28. So, all this stuff, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, when I was shooting a ton, getting hired a ton and traveling around a lot, in my late 20s, early 30s, like I'd be on assignment for jobs. But while I was wherever I was, which could have been anywhere around the country or the world, like I would then take more time to then make my own personal work.
This is a great opportunity to do extra work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like that. It was just like extra, just make more stuff. And now when I end up traveling, I'm like, no, I just am going to do the job, and then I'm going to go back to the hotel and take a nap or something. But I think one benefit, at least for photographers and like this world, is we do get better as we get older, but age doesn't matter that much. And in fact, like it doesn't like age us out, like where in other creative industries, it really seems to be like once you're past 30 or something, your career is over. Like we don't have that. Certainly with music, we see that a lot. Like a lot of people make the best stuff in their early 20s, right? And then by the time they're 30, they've disappeared. At least with photography, there's a lot of different opportunities we have and we can take, and we can move on for a long period of time, have a really long marathon-like career.
Yeah. It's actually kind of strange to me that music is that exception. Like it really is so heavily weighted towards the young, whereas, I don't think, photography's not, filmmaking's not, writing is not, many other pursuits. I think that sort of, the holding up the youth as the ideal is misplaced, but in music, it seems to actually kind of work that way. I don't know. Yeah,
that might be the main one. Another thing that I just want to say is like, I think a lot of photographers, I've been seeing it a lot. I don't know if you follow that Instagram person. He goes by a photo editor, but he's been posting how much photographers make, like net. They're anonymous surveys. Mm-hmm. And it's really fascinating. And he does different markets, and like the range is incredible, right? There's like some who are like netting almost $1 million a year, and then some who are netting, $50,000 a year. Like the range is incredible. But I see a lot of them, and there's advice built into these posts from the photographers, and some of them talk about like saving for retirement and things like that. And I sort of say this as a joke, but I'm also serious, is like there is no retiring. And, I say we suffer till the very end. Like I think, unless you are very strictly a commercial artist and crafts person, and you make no art, Like, you don't retire when you
Yeah.
make things. You just will be compelled to for the rest of your life.
Like, what would you do? I think I imagine that you're doing the things you would do in a retired state. Like if you just, lottery money shows up at your door, money becomes no issue tomorrow, you'd probably continue doing many of the same creative projects.
My life is very much retired right now. It feels that way, like I'm very much, cause like, I don't have to do anything really. And it's obviously, I do, but I don't, it's not like I have to be anywhere. I get to choose the things that I pick and, so yes, I don't see my life changing much as a retired person, as long as I am physically mobile.
Right.
I need to be able to.
The one area that I think is like a pretty safe pursuit for any young photographers specifically is I do think there will be a need for just event work for the foreseeable future until the whole world changes in some way. I can't imagine if you want to get into, which often is kind of looked down on. A lot of the time people are like, oh, I never want to have to shoot weddings. Weddings is a nightmare or just event work in general. Cause it's hard work. Like it's physically like you have to keep going and mentally tiring. And it's a lot of work to do, but it pays okay. Especially once you become established in it, especially with weddings, you can really make a good living at it. So, I want to keep that window of optimism open that if you were looking for a way to make money from the camera gear that you enjoy and you like taking photos, I think that path will basically just stay open. There needs to be, earlier we're talking about the news of a wire image service like Getty. That'll be there, but I think that's doesn't necessarily pay as well. I think less people make a great living off of that, and there's less room for it total. There's kind of sort of a fixed amount of how many photographers can do that. There's almost no limit to how many event photographers can be out there. So I think if you want to pursue that, 100%, it still will be a path for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. Parties, people like to have fun and get together and make memories. I mean, there's actually, obviously, there's no shame in that. You just have to be the type of person who enjoys doing that kind of thing. And it shows when you do. I think the best wedding photographers or event photographers, they love it. They love being in that moment. I never liked it. I worked for a wedding photographer when I was in college for one summer, and it was the worst job I ever had. I hated my life. I hated everything about it, but it was just because I'm not that type of person who enjoys those types of things. So obviously I wouldn't want to do that. But there are many more very well-adjusted people who find joy.
Would you rather do it than just go get a normal job? I mean, get a Home Depot job or whatever. This is assuming you're 25.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it. It's not, I probably shot 2 or 3 weddings in my life just because someone asked or whatever. I don't know. When you're young, you want to take pictures, you take the opportunity to take pictures. You find, and that's a lot of the times how you find what you want to do. And if you're good at it. So, I mean, obviously this is tired and true advice right here.
All right. So what about the weird crossovers of mediums we're about to run into? So obviously we're already living through the sort of convergence of video and photo that has blended a lot and will blend more. First, let's talk about video, but I also want to get to the Vision Pro, AR, photography as a immersive medium, whatever that next generation is. But first, how I think you've always played with video in certain ways. You've seemed to have had some amount of draw to it, even though it wasn't your primary thing. I know other photographers that did not, were just never wanted to touch it. Please don't make me shoot video. And I think everybody's having to at least be more aware of it. I don't know. What's your take?
Yeah. Well, when that first Canon came out, the 5D with the video in it, like it was obviously super compelling. For whatever reason, you know, people I think enjoy watching film, like moving images, more than still photography. They appreciate it more just on a general level.
Yeah. I'll just say I do, even though I've had a lot of photography jobs, I've always enjoyed moving images more.
Yeah. I think to me, and this is just, you know, it's for me, you know, it's a combination of certain things. And like you know, like I said, I went to art school for photography, and before, like, you know, there were film majors, and a lot of the people there were my friends, and I saw what they did and what that world looked like. But to me, I was always like what I learned about and what inspired me initially was the still image, and specifically like contemporary art photography, sort of on the highest level, like the print and the gallery and that thing. And you know, when I see a photo, like a photo that is well done and like, you know, like to me, that is one of the highest art forms. Like sometimes I'll list, like, you know, maybe I can ask you now, like, what are your top 5 art forms? Like I'll tell you mine for right off the bat is music, film, photography, then architecture. I don't know, what is that, 4? And then painting. Good. Painting is like, you know, not house painting, like, you know,
fence-based
fine art. Of course. Fine art is what they. So, you know, like, and it's funny because those first 2, that's not the mediums, but I consider photography to be in a top 5 in just what I enjoy and what inspires me. And
were those in order as well?
You know, it's funny because for the point I'm trying to make, I should have put photography as number 2. But yeah, actually, photography is between 2 and 3. Yeah. I think there's nothing better than music. Just like generally speaking,
what's interesting,
like, as the number 1.
What's interesting to me is that I often emphasize that point because I very strongly feel that as well. I've always been frustrated that my skill set didn't align with music in any way. Like I would have rather, career wise, it's much harder to make money, but artistic expressionly, I would much more enjoy. I'd get more inherent satisfaction out of pursuing music. I just think it's like the most.
Yeah, it's the deepest, like most emotional, like you know, but also think about like you can then score your own music for your videos, like, and not worry about like royalty free music or licensing and all that bullshit that comes with, you know, creating videos for the internet, and how they have the greatest lobby of protections, right? Like people can steal our images all they want all day and we don't get shit. But like if you're a musician and you have your stuff registered properly, like it's getting taken down and or you're receiving a royalty. Like, amazing, you know, that's a real industry right there that like really protected their own. But just back to photography in general, it's like I just love a really well constructed, like deep, you know, photograph in that context, you know, and it depends. There's you know, I have a lot of photographic heroes. That said, so do I when it comes to filmmaking and like the moving image, but I tend just to be more of a solo creator. That's just how I am. It's like my personality, and film requires like this whole
There's
thing.
less you can do by yourself.
Yeah. And you know, you could, certainly these days, you know, I have all the tools. I could do most of these things myself, but there's just so many things that you need to do, and I think do well, that just hold me back from wanting to pursue it more. I just think, you know, and it's weird. I almost think it's like, it's certainly, you know, I don't even think, I know it's like a more time consuming product to make, like on every level. And, I just don't work that way. Like I just like to make and move on. Like it just is how I have always done it. Like, and
if you look at the way young people are doing it, where they're starting on their phones, though, there's like, it's a little more equalized, right? Where they're using the same device either way. To the technical quality doesn't matter so much, so they don't need to worry about like adding microphones and lighting and all that. Like either way, they're just pressing either the record button or the shutter button. And there's almost more of the choice between like, am I going to make a video or a photo is so much more of like a flat playing field of which path they're going to go down now. And I guess if you were approaching it from that perspective, how would you think about it? You know, like if your whole thing is just like, well, I don't know. I guess some of this is now being influenced by what the social media platforms are doing, right? So if you were hoping to be seen by a larger audience, now it's like, well, you're just compelled to do video because they're telling you to. So I guess you almost people have less of a say of what they want to get into because they're just being pushed towards video now. But
yeah, that's so interesting how the platforms became mediums and you sort of make your work for those specific places. It's funny, you know, I was listening to a Mr. Beast, interview, and I don't really like his content, but like whatever, he's a famous, you know, as famous, knows what he's doing, but he was talking about how he would have people, you know, want to come and work for him. And he would ask them what they wanted to do with their lives. And if some of them were like, oh, I want to make movies, like I want to make films like for Hollywood or whatever. And he wouldn't want to hire them. Because to him, it was like YouTube was the end. Like that was the goal, like to be there. Like, and that's what he was working towards, to make work for that platform. And so like, that's the goal, you know, and I guess that in your mind, you have to think about like, yeah, where do you want to see your work? Where do you think the things that you want to make, like, where do you ultimately want to see them? And I think that plays a big role in what kind of media, you know, and tools you're going to use.
I 100% feel that. I mean, because I feel YouTube as a satisfying end goal. Like when something's completed for YouTube, like that is a fully realized product. And I don't have that same feeling when it's for, say, Instagram or TikTok. Like that final medium to me is less, it's like a compromised format. And I know other people do not feel that way. Other people are making like, proper art that is not compromised in any way and kind of optimized for those mediums. And I think it's just okay to be kind of honest about which one fits for you and which one doesn't. But yeah, I think Mr. Beast has the right idea.
Yeah, I think so too. And you know, when I was coming up, it was like the goal for me was like be in magazines and like make prints and be on the wall somewhere. And you know, but as technology, you know, time went on and technology changed, like the end goals have shifted. And you know, I almost feel a little homeless on the internet now because like in many ways, like I love Tumblr, like that was like my peak medium because like ultimately I had my own website for it, right? Like it was like you could view it on the dashboard, but there was like, just my web page where you could see the photo nice and big.
Can I ask a very personal question? How much traffic does your personal website get relative to your other existences on the internet? Like, you know, if you go to noahkalina.com, you've put the proper amount of effort into it. It's got everything there. It's like a good way to experience your work.
Still work in progress.
Of course.
Always.
But
I've been working on it for 20 years. So.
Yeah, sure. But you've been working on your Instagram page for 20 years too. I mean, like that's a work in progress as well. Do you think how important is that place of like a self-owned, like just a website that is not on a platform?
Yeah. Well, I mean, now I don't know. I mean, to me, I think I'd like to think that it's important. I think a lot of people in professional industries do think it's important for you to sort of exist outside of a social media platform. Like if really you're only showing work on your Instagram page, like I don't think that's a good look. I don't know. Who knows? The people might have changed. Their perspectives might have changed. I also, just to have your own site is a good idea. Like, just because you sort of own it, and who knows what
things close.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the people move on. So, it when it came to like Tumblr, like, you could keep it fresh though, because it was like a feed, but it was still like, you could see it on your own page, but at least like every day you could check in and it would be different, and it was fun. But that was just a different time on the internet. Now I don't know, like, nothing feels right. Like, nothing feels like a good place to put anything anywhere.
Yeah. No,
at least for me,
I completely have that feeling too. My peak was
very
Flickr,
depressing.
But even at that, it's funny.
Yeah. I mean, I loved Flickr for sure. Like,
but even when I look back on that with the, rose tinted glasses, I was engaging with very few people there. Like, the community was actually what now would just feel like a room full of people. I was kind of talking to like 20 people, but it felt more satisfying. The images were bigger. It just was like a more complete experience. And now I just, when I post it to Instagram, I can have a lot more people see it and interact with it and get more feedback and get more of a connection to others. But I'm looking at it on my phone. It's way more compressed. I never see it fill up a large screen, and it never really feels satisfying in that same way.
Well, hey, I don't know. We live in hell, I guess, to a certain extent. It's funny. Adam was telling me that he got super into Apple News Plus, and I started using it. And like, at least you can see all the magazines again. I used to subscribe to a bunch of magazines and like get, at least flip through and see photos printed on paper or whatever. I don't get the magazines anymore, but at least with that, you can sort of flip through the magazines and see the photos nice and big on, I think it's a better experience on your desktop or laptop over the phone. But yeah, I mean, this is what's kind of a bummer, is like the screens are just getting smaller, so it's not appreciated in the same way,
Okay, so I on your other podcast with Adam, I haven't heard you reference anything about goggle technology. And so, speaking of large/small screens, we'll now have the opportunity to have infinitely large screens that are surrounding us in all directions. The photography we take can not only be in 3D, but it can be immersive, meaning you can like explore that 3D-ness of it. It can. We're about to be able to capture reality in a much more accurate, complete way. I guess, like, what's your first reaction to this beyond like, just from a photography perspective, like whether or not you want to wear goggles around the house 24/7? How would you like to experience images in that environment?
I think when I was watching that keynote, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I want one. I want to try it. I'm not like I loved the MetaQuest. I had those. I thought that it stopped working. I think that
first one or the second
is,
one, Quest 1 or Quest 2? Yeah,
second one. Yeah,
that's what I
got. It stopped working, and they sent me a new one, and it didn't work, and I was like, "Fuck this! It's too annoying." It was too annoying to like have it not work, and I didn't want to troubleshoot it. It wasn't like worth it. But when it was working, I thought it was amazing. I think that experience is like truly amazing. It's like, it's fun and immersive and just incredible. If you find the right thing, it's like outrageous. It's like, how is this? This is just, it's fun entertainment. I'm sure the Apple one's going to be amazing. Like, and I would totally, try it out. And I don't, will I buy it? I don't know. It's kind of expensive, but maybe I will. I saw, when they showed the photo thing of taking a picture of a family, I was like, oh, wow, I could do that. Which is a write-off, I guess. If there's a camera in there, I guess if I just like take one photo.
That's what I'm most interested in, because the first gen of this, that first year is going to pass by quickly, and we're going to be very soon we'll be in a place where this is kind of normalized. It's not as expensive. There's more options for what you buy. They're not going to be quite as heavy, blah, blah, blah. Like, this will evolve really quickly. And I'm more trying to wrap my head around, like, what will the kind of consequences be, especially when I think about like, okay, why did I get into photography? Early on, I thought a lot about like preserving memories, sort of just, being a teenager and being like, I don't know, like when something happens, how do I even, and I just try to remember it. Memory is so fallible, and I'm probably wrong about it anyway. So if I document it concretely, I can kind of like create some kind of evidence pile of what my life was like. I don't really like, I don't know. It wasn't a really clear thought pattern, but it was about preserving reality in a way. It's like, I want to hold on to memories more concretely. And now as that's become, we've kind of fully realized that, especially with the way we use smartphones, that often I'm like, okay, what did I do on that particular day in August 2020 or whatever? I pull up my phone and like, I probably took some photos that day. I can see where I went and what I did. And we're kind of at that point where it's like I am documenting to the point that I can like really retrace steps. So this will bring it to the next level of like, you take those family photos and now like, yeah, you could walk through the room of your child's birthday. But what I think about is, what will that be like once the child's grown up and moved to college? Like that level of going, like just reliving your life. I wonder if it starts to like, is it always positive? I don't want to cast too negative of a light on it, but I just imagine, like a lot of people referenced in that keynote, it's like, kind of looks like you see the guy taking the photos, then he's alone on the couch later. And it's like, what's the backstory here? Like, where did the family go? But that's going to be a real experience that will have these 3D scans and 3D, immersive memories, which I think Apple's even calling them memories of, what it was like to be in an environment. And if something tragic happens, it'd be very compelling to just live in that, right? Like to revisit it infinitely and to, go back to your glory days. And I don't know.
I know it's black. It's Black Mirror. It's dystopian. It's upsetting. I don't know. I mean, I think ultimately, and there are people who speak on this topic really eloquently. So, and, have better insight into this. I think ultimately this will become more of an augmented reality device where you will live, we're passed through. It's the glasses you're wearing now will have some screens in it or some shit. Or then you can just turn it like and off and be completely immersed in some fantasy world. I see it as entertainment. I know they're like seeing it as more of a like productivity thing, like a work thing. Like, oh, you want like big screen, like 4K screen, like screens anywhere you go.
4K screens, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's cool. I mean, I love big screens. I've got
cool.
three. I've got three on my desk. Like, I want more. I love having screens, but I also love like being able to look away from them and like do other shit. I think maybe I'm a little too ADD to like want to like shut myself like completely into that type of environment. Again, but like all of these things are tools. People will figure out ways to use them that enhance their lives or what they do in a way that is valuable or meaningful.
Well, one like phase of this, one thing that will happen right away that I think will be interesting is like there'll instantly be some kind of influencer culture around it. There will be a thing of like, look, I went and I visited this beautiful waterfall and I captured it in immersive 3D, and I'm going to share with you my capture of that immersive experience, and people will download it and watch it. Like that'll just happen.
If I can get paid, I want that. Can I get paid to do that? Because
I
will go. And
probably not, because I think it'll be like Instagram. It'll be a free
platform.
It'll be an ad supported platform where every 3 posts you have to go into an immersive ad.
Or maybe, like I was saying earlier, is like, oh, well, I love Tyler and I love where he goes and what he's going to do. I'm going to pay $5 a month to see like the extra, like the stuff, the good stuff. So
that's true. That will be interesting. Here's the like detail about it that'll be really strange and kind of interesting is the perspective. Well, I don't know how it fully captures yet. So far, they only showed it like kind of like a 3D photo in front of you. But once we have immersive cameras, that is different from what is built in, what they offer on the headset. Like that won't capture a full 3D recording. But imagining once you have that camera, the odd thing is now you'll also put on the goggles and you'll look down and be my body. Like you'll have the body of the person that you're experiencing, which is like a really weird part of it.
So this that's so funny. It reminds me of this time. I'm friends with Reggie Watts, the musician and performer.
Yeah. You've taken great photos of him.
I was over at his house. This was before the Meta Quest. He had one that was like hooked up to a computer, but he's super into tech stuff. And he let me try it. It was one of the first times I tried VR. And he let me go into the world, like whatever it was, but I was him. Like they had made an avatar as him. And like, so I was in this world and people were coming up to me thinking I was him. Right. And it was so weird. Cause I was like, I was like, get this, like, I don't want to be you. Like, that seems like that's not fun. People were just like aggressively hounding me in that world. That said, some people might really enjoy that. Like maybe it's not him as a celebrity. It's just some other person they really like and they want to inhabit their body and like know what it's like to experience the things that they experience. Again, this is Black Mirror. It's just, it can be dystopian. Who knows where it will lead, but if anything, it's like entertainment.
I can carve out all these, interesting, only positive, and especially entertainment examples. Like you're saying, there are things that will just be really cool and really fun. It's just that there's like the possibilities become much more infinite than with the 2D capture that we're used to with photo and video. It's the same as like when you move from a fixed moment in time in photography to passing time in video, the opportunities massively open up. Now we're going to add another dimension and those possibilities open up again. And what I'm actually excited for in the immediate future, like when in the first round, not that many people will have goggles. I think there'll be an interesting way to create in 2D space. So create 2D content using a 3D space. So I start imagining that like you're able to have a sort of video editor, or like an After Effects, like a special, a 3D environment that lets you create stuff that is meant to be viewed in 2D. So let's say I have like a 2D canvas that I can see inside my living room. And I'm like, okay, I want to grab this dinosaur, put it into that space and have this comet pass through it. And everything that happens in this rectangle becomes my 2D video. And I can walk into it. And now like the person I'm filming becomes like the subject in it. And I've added fully like immersive, fully 3D interactive things that I'm basically recording it. I'm capturing it with goggles on with the intent of it becoming a 2D special effects thing. Just that like once you're in 3D space and you're like just working on things, it does open up possibilities that you can't do when you're only on a flat screen. Am I like five layers too disconnected from what makes sense when we haven't tried these on? I just like I can see all these ways that we can create stuff that we just haven't been able to before, and I think it's
so. So you're excited.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely excited. I can see the Black Mirror stuff and I'm excited, and those thoughts can exist at the same time.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's cool. I mean, and any new tool like media, this is a new medium maybe, and something to work towards. And I think like ultimately, possibly exploit for our own, to me, doing all what you were just describing, like sounds cool, but like, to me, the only reason I would do that, like, I wouldn't want to do that just like for like, I mean, it sounds like fun, but like, I would want to do that if like ultimately, well, if I found it fulfilling, obviously, but like, if there was some sort of monetary incentive involved in doing, otherwise like the likes and like adoration from comments, like just do not do it for me. It's like, I don't care. Like I do not need another like on any social platform. It means it obviously feels good. It's still like dopamine, but no, like if I'm going to like put in that sort of time and effort and try to tell a story using this new platform, like there's got to be like some sort of
reason. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is that for the first long time, maybe forever, there won't be as many people wearing it. Like it's not if you want to make money off creating something with it, most people won't have goggles for quite a while. I keep calling them goggles. I don't know if is that the technical term for these glasses.
I think they probably say headset, right?
And, so what most people's experience of it will be is like seeing stuff on YouTube, so I don't know, there'll be like a disconnect.
Which is a terrible experience. I mean, watching any Meta Quest like video is like, you don't get it unless you're in it. So it's useless. Like, there was a mini golf game on MetaQuest that was just amazing. Like it was it was the best mini golf I ever played in my life in virtual reality. So like,
actually, that's a perfect application. I'll try that.
I mean, and it's true. If you still have it, Walkabout Mini Golf is just like, it's just amazing. It's so good. I wish I still had it because then I'd meet you in there to play it. I miss it.
Well, I
think it's weird that. Oh, tell me.
We just have a delay. But the other best one is climbing, like anything where you don't need your legs. So in the climbing game, you just like put your hands in place to grab the next thing.
That's almost like too much work. Yeah. This is just you could sit down, just lazy swing your thing. I mean, I think it's like a miss with the Apple thing is like there's no games in it. It's like I really want that thing to be something I play with and not work with.
Well, the reason I'll say that it's a good idea for them not to have done games is that Apple's always bad at games. So I feel like if they'd really tried hard at it, there's like a decent chance they'd blow it. And they're we know how to do productivity. We know how to make the thing that you want to work on. So we'll try to make the thing you want to work on. So
I mean, hey, if Photoshop is cool in there and I can like somehow like edit my photos, like I guess that will be good,
think how big the prints could be.
It's just, super. I mean, finally, like medium format resolution like has a purpose. I mean, we'll see. Too early to tell. I mean, it does seem like something that could be fun to make things for. But who knows? Lots of speculation.
Okay, what about this one last bit of speculation? Is this a comeback of like 3D photos? Like let's pretend Noah in a few months or in 2 years likes wearing his goggles a couple times a day. Would that be enough to compel you to be like, I want to capture some 3D images that would be compelling to look at in this? Would you go out with the rig to do this?
Get one. What is it? A 3D camera or something?
Sure.
A big wiggle thing. Except it doesn't wiggle. You just can like move your head side to side, and it has 3 dimensions. I mean, it all sounds like it could be fun. I mean, I guess the ultimate thing once again is like, what's the point? And if it's just about like trying to like get people to, and like. For people to be like, cool work, man. Good job. Keep up the good work. I mean, I don't know. I don't need to do that. I mean, I have better, I would just, all of this actually just makes me want to go outside and make a real photograph, like construct it, bring it in, like work on it and like fucking print it out and put it on the wall. And like, it'll sit there and then it'll end up in a box and then, someone will find it when I die.